What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Fresh Out of College. With me is Ryota.
Hey guys, it's Ryota. So today for you, we have our weekly rundown involving short-term memory and forecast for the weekend. We're going to talk a little bit about some NWSL soccer, things going on in the MLB, NBA, WNBA, a little bit of PGA. And we got a whole lot to tell you about.
Yeah, it's a packed weekend. Let's get into it. All right, Ryota. What do you have for the first short-term memory? What is the update?
Yeah, so one of the big news around soccer is the NWSL, the Women's Soccer League in the United States, had its championship game a couple of days ago, and the teams facing off are the Houston Dash and the Chicago Red Stars. So kind of what we talked about in previous segments and episodes. The Red Stars have this, action-packed team. They have Julie Ertz, Allison Nair, Kealia Watt, really good fullbacks to really have a good, strong attack. But then they're facing off against this team from Houston, which were actually very overlooked. Critics actually thought they weren't going to make the playoffs. Remember, originally it was 9 teams, right? So one of them would get cut. They thought the Dash could have been that team getting cut, but Orlando Pride pulled out because of the COVID cases within their team, and Dash were in the playoffs automatically. And look where they are. They got to the finals. They've been led by Rachel Daly from England and a lot of other kind of younger players, but not so much talent as compared to the Red Stars team. But Houston Dash pulled it off. They had an early penalty kick in about the 5th minute. Sophie Schmidt scored that, put it into the right side of the net. It's 1-0 early in the game. A really competitive game throughout, but in the end, the Houston Dash put the dagger in with a goal right in the 90th minute in extra time. So it was a really good game, really fun to watch. And I think this is a good example of, the bubble working, because the NWSL was working in a bubble in Utah, and they did a really good job because one team pulled out before the bubble started, but there was no news around COVID, and they did a really good job. And I think a lot of people enjoyed watching soccer, and they were really one of the first sports to come back in the United States. So I think they set a really good example.
Yeah, that's true. That cannot be said for the MLB, as there has been a COVID outbreak. Miami Marlins have 14 players actually just test positive now for COVID. I believe it was yesterday that it was positive. So big news. Of course, the MLB suspended the games, suspended the 2 games, the Philadelphia versus New York Yankee game, because the Phillies did play the Marlins when the Marlins were getting tested positive. The Marlins will also suspend their home opener. I believe that game is
Against the Orioles.
Against Orioles. Yeah, so big news out of there. So the MLB is not doing a bubble. They're kind of just doing it state by state, each traveling to their respective stadiums. So it is interesting to see the different dynamic. What are your takes on kind of that big outbreak? Do you think this will maybe shorten the season and kind of not get going like we envisioned it to be?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a big worry from the start, right? The MLB's been doing a good job testing and trying to make sure players are safe, but I mean, it's going to happen because, they're not in a bubble. The players, you don't know where the players could go when they go home after the game or before the game. I mean, they're going to be at home, but who knows? They just go get some food from a restaurant. That's totally, how you could contract the virus.
You can't
really avoid it. So that's the downside of it. It gives players freedom, but you have to understand it's not a bubble. They're not enclosed. So this is going to happen. And baseball, you're going to travel a lot. I was watching the Mets game yesterday. They were saying the Mets were going to travel by bus to Boston instead of flying, which is obviously they normally fly. It's much faster, but they're going to bus because, and that's just one of those things they're adjusting. But still, it's unavoidable. And again, Miami is in one of the, hotspots right now, and it's huge breakout in Florida.
Yeah.
So of course it's going to happen. And again, I am a little worried for other teams too. And I'm sure other teams are going to be more safer than others. I know Don Mattingly, the manager, was asking probably for a larger he is asking for a larger taxi squad now, because, the taxi squad is not that large. And if you're losing 14 players, or at least I know four of them are at least starters in the 30-man roster,
Yeah.
that's a huge loss. And this is really interesting. This should be also translated to fantasy baseball too, right? Maybe
Yeah.
matchup acquisitions to be added.
That's
But
true. I mean, if you think about it, so for the MLB, the rule is you have to have 2 negative COVID tests, a day apart, 24 hours apart. So 14 players getting signed off in a timely manner, and the season is there's only 60 games, so it's a sprint. So that only is about, I think they're only playing till October, end of October, so maybe 8 or 9 weeks, if I'm
yeah,
not
I
mistaken.
mean, kind of what we've seen
So
from other past players is recovering. It takes 2 or 3 weeks,
yeah, so they're
sometimes
gonna
really
be
shorter.
losing.
But yeah,
Exactly.
you lose
2
uh,
weeks, 3 weeks
yeah,
maybe, and
2 weeks.
then
That's like
that's
10
already
games,
yeah.
10, 12 games. Yeah.
I it's kind of interesting to see, or what if this happens to a team that is in contention?
No,
Um,
yeah, easily.
Miami is not the team that you would per se say they're gonna win the World Series or they're gonna be in the playoffs. They're kind of a team that is rebuilding still, so it would be more interesting, and I hope this doesn't happen, but it would be interesting to see if this happened to, say, the Nationals or the Dodgers, what, like, people would say there, you know?
Houston even too.
Yeah, Houston even. I mean, any team that is has playoff aspirations, um, is huge. And this is a big outbreak. This is only 2 days. This is only 2 days removed from actually, like, playing and,
Yeah, and
traveling
we've
and
seen
stuff.
some positive cases here and there, like Hunter Dozier from the Royals tested positive right after you drafted him.
Mhm. Juan
Trying to think
Soto.
of Juan Soto. Yeah,
Yeah.
he seems to be doing okay. Or they're not. The testing is it's kind of confusing on what was going on with his.
Mhm.
But yeah, Hunter Dozier is clearly positive. Can't remember. I think that's about it. But I'm sure
It's
it'll pop up here and there.
yeah. It will be interesting to see this is tracking. It's not great news that it's happening so quickly. I don't know if I don't know when the MLB will call it. There's no discussions about stopping the league right
Hmm.
now. So we'll just have to see what happens. I know
Yeah.
the MLB is planning to meet with their owners, I think at 9:30. So about an hour ago, they met with the owners to talk about it. So we'll see what happens. What else do you have for updates?
So Sabrina Ionescu made her WNBA debut, the #1 pick from Oregon. She was highly touted, and she broke so many records in college. Probably, I mean, arguably one of the best college basketball players,
Mhm.
women's basketball players, that we've ever seen come out. Um, and she played for the New York Liberty, or she got drafted by New York Liberty, and they made her debut against the Seattle Storm, and that was kind of a I don't know, highlighted game because the Storm have Sue Bird, arguably one of the most talented WNBA players ever,
Brianna
and
Stewart, though.
Brianna Stewart,
Yeah.
right? So that duo plus watching Ionescu, I think, was really fun. She ended up playing 34 minutes leading the team, which is pretty crazy. She went 12 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. Not a
Mhm.
bad outing. And I mean, the sky is, I mean, she has a high ceiling, still so much room to grow. She's so young. She had a lot of hype, working out with Steph Curry and having a good relationship with Kobe, before he passed
Mhm.
away. So a lot of people will be watching her, I think.
Yeah, she's definitely one of the top talents already in the league, for being so young. It was fun to see, Brianna Stewart versus, INS just because that is a rivalry for years to come because they are so young.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, Also, we forgot to mention Justin Verlander, is we don't know do you think did he say he's gonna miss the rest of the season? I think there was first
So I
initial
think,
reports that
yeah, the
was gonna
first
happen?
reports said they thought he missed the season, but he's saying it's a forearm strain,
Okay. So
but we still don't know.
even then, I mean, we talked about it, only 60 games, how long, um, and like you said before, injuries happen, more injuries, susceptible to injuries because they haven't had that transition in that season, to prepare. So big hit, especially since they lost Garrett Cole and Charlie Morton to free agency. But yeah. What about in PGA?
Yeah, so last weekend there was the 3M Open. The winner was a 35-year-old from Arizona, Michael Thompson. He won 6.6 million, and
There we go.
the tournament was held at TPC Twin Cities in Minneapolis. This was his second PGA win. His last was in 2013 at the Honda Classic.
Wow.
So he's been grinding for a while.
Yeah.
Um, Honestly, like it's not a name that I'm familiar with, and his last one was 2013, so he
Good
finally
for
made it
him.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. 7 years now. In the NFL, big news about Jamal Adams going to the Seahawks. We'll have more about that in our later discussion, but I kind of wanted to highlight big moves that happened throughout the offseason because Jamal Adams moving was one of the last big things to happen in the offseason. I know Jadeveon Clowney has yet to be signed, but we kind of expected Adams to move. So let me just run him down. Tom Brady went to Tampa. Cam Newton went to the Pats. Hopkins went to Arizona. Jamal Adams went to Seattle. Gronk unretired and went to Tampa. Rivers to Indianapolis. Teddy Bridgewater replaced Cam Newton in North Carolina, so he'll be playing. He'll be playing there instead of Cam Newton, which will be a different vibe. Gurley to Atlanta, long stay at with the Los Angeles Rams is now in Atlanta. Stephon Diggs to Buffalo, Darius Slay to Philadelphia, Jameis Winston going to the Saints and backing up Drew Brees. Emmanuel Sanders also goes to New Orleans. Christian McCaffrey becomes the highest paid running back ever. And then Patrick Mahomes has the biggest sports deal. So a lot happening in what we can obviously say is jam-packed already with the COVID thing, but kind of interesting to see like new players moving, especially Phillip Rivers, long time standstill with the Chargers, and now in Indianapolis. That will take a lot to get used to, but just a lot of big names moving. I kind of wanted to highlight that. It's kind of like the NBA, in the NFL you don't really see that, but now it really happened this offseason. Yeah, so that was my kind of splurge on the NFL.
Okay.
What about for the NBA?
We have several NBA updates. One most recently, Kyrie Irving commits $1.5 million to support WNBA players who opted out of the 2020 season. This is a really cool, kind action by Kyrie, and I mean, expect nothing less from a person like him, honestly.
Yeah, it is. That is really generous, especially since some of the solid WNBA players were kind of guilted, or not guilted in, but were kind of the WNBA didn't accommodate some of their opt outs. So it is nice to see that Kyrie will be donating some of the money to them, and so they feel more comfortable not playing. Also,
It's kind of
NBA.
like, sorry, kind of touch on this one thing. Sorry, it's kind
Yeah.
of like when the MLB players, donated money to the minor league players.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Kind of very similar thing, and a lot of respect for those guys too. So
Yeah. Especially, yeah, that is true. That's a good point. And the NBA owners stated that they will lose $50 million this next season coming up if no fans attend. I thought that was interesting. I mean, I didn't think that was too. I mean, thinking about owners, going back to like one of our first podcasts, owners have so much money. I mean, if they're losing 1 million a game, that is a lot for us. But I feel like they should have more of a pocket to take some of that. Like if there were to be a pandemic like this, I feel like they should have had, and 50 million isn't that much, I feel like, in the eyes of owners, but maybe
yeah,
I'm
I
just
wonder if that number's exaggerated or just total estimate. Because I feel like that's
that's what some that's what so the source that I got it from is that one anonymous owner stated that. I don't know if that has any clarity, but I mean there'll definitely be ramifications if they lose with no fans, but I don't know. What do you think about NBA probably going to lower the cap and making it harder for contracts or players to get the contracts that they envisioned? What's your stance on that?
I think every year in every sport we see salary caps go up almost
Mm-hmm.
because contracts are just going to go higher and higher, and that's how the capitalistic society we live in works, right? It's just competition, free market, everything's going to go up and up and up.
Yeah, especially
So
with the TV revenue.
yeah, right, and TV revenue increases, inflation increases, so I think it's not going to stop. It's going to be impossible to stop. Players are going to
Mm-hmm.
bargain because they expect more and more, and that's respectable.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, this COVID pandemic puts a completely different flip on things, on changes the narrative of everything. So I mean, it didn't stop Mahomes from getting a huge deal.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm not really sure. I understand that there are going to be losses with no ticket sales, but you know I think they're going to have to adjust somehow to. I mean, I don't think this is going to be the only situation. I think this is just like a learning lesson. I think in the future there's going to be other issues we have to deal with.
Mm,
So I don't know what owners are going to have to do, whether it be gaining more sponsorships or yeah, making tickets more expensive so they can accumulate more capital for the
yeah.
future. I don't really know.
I think it's you did touch on Patrick Mahomes. I think that the top players will be saved, like they will get their contracts, but I think I'm more worried about like the players that, might be on that veteran contract or maybe not asking for the highest amount. I think those players will be hurt the most.
Oh
Um,
yeah, definitely.
and then we're probably might see like draft picks might be traded and sold too, so teams can accumulate more money that way, um, which we haven't seen in a while, um, trading draft or selling draft picks.
Yeah,
So
or even if we see 35-year-old veterans who just can't get a good contract but can play.
exactly,
Maybe they're gonna go elsewhere, go abroad, play in
yeah.
the
Well, even like the young, even like maybe we won't see the D League. Uh, Maybe the D League will suffer because they can't pay the contract. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But maybe we'll see the younger players like that maybe
mhm,
have to go abroad, instead of playing in the D League, because I know the D League was just getting going,
yeah.
and they were getting enough capital to spend
Well,
on
it's
these
interesting
guys.
too, right? Because now so we see some of those high school players take
Exactly.
the straight G League path, right, through that program or whatever, instead of going to college because they
Hmm.
assume they can get more money.
Hmm.
But then, yeah, if their contracts get cut, they're gonna maybe go back. Yeah, I don't know.
It is interesting. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how the D League is set up in that way, but I assume they would see more financial losses than the NBA. Also, what happened with the Knicks?
Yeah, so they hired Tom Thibodeau for
Thibodeau,
five
yeah,
years. Thibodeau, kind of weird looking guy. He always reminds me of the Penguin from Batman. Um, but yeah, I mean, his most notable coaching career was with the Bulls when Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler were there.
yeah,
I think Joakim Noah was there too, probably, right?
yep. They had a really really good team there. One of his kind of he's more known for really really playing his players. So I expect RJ Barrett to get a lot of minutes. I know Jimmy Butler was playing nearly 40 minutes a game, um, when
That's
Tom
where
was
he got
there.
his grit, kind of grit mentality too, probably,
Yeah,
honestly.
I think this is a really good deal for the Knicks, but the Knicks have been in this state of not playing their young guys as much.
Yeah, so I
Um,
think that's the problem, right? They need to commit to their young core. Like
yeah,
Kevin Knox was starting to see less and less playing time, but wasn't he a first round pick?
he was a first round pick, yes,
Right. And
out of
I think
Kentucky. Yeah.
when you don't have confidence in your player, the player is going to lose confidence in himself. I
Hmm.
think that's kind of what we see with the Knicks. Just that's that whole cycle,
Yeah,
right? Robinson's
exactly.
seeing a decent amount of playing time, but not a whole lot actually. RJ
He,
Barrett's,
yeah,
kind of wasn't. And Kevin Knox definitely deserves more in order to get to where he hopes, you know,
it has
where they
always
hope. But
been kind of that thing of the mindset, like the fans, want a winning team, and if coaches can't supply that, they get fired, and they
mhm.
might get fired prematurely. But then you also go into like, okay, if they want a winning team, I got to play the best players, and those best players are sometimes the veterans,
Yeah.
which takes away from
Well,
the
yeah.
development.
I want to connect this to, so let's say the MLB.
Okay.
So the Red Sox or the Yankees, similar situation, right? If they're ever in a losing season, they
Mhm.
are going to get booed by the fans very hard.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, the Red Sox and Yankees, the last time I can think, or I mean, just thinking back, I can't think of a time where they were rebuilding.
Well, this season for the Red Sox, probably.
Well, but even then, they're not like full rebuild like the Mariners.
Yeah.
Because again, it's the pressure of the fans. The
Yeah. I
GM, the
think.
coach, they can't go into full rebuild because the fans expect so much. And that's just like the culture, the sports culture there. I think that's the same thing in New York. They
Mhm.
expect winning. So the Knicks, you're right, they can't ever commit to like a full rebuild, even if the coach and GM might want to, because just the fans, the people, the culture there, they can't, they don't have patience.
Yeah. No,
Us
I agree
Seattle
with you.
people are so used to patience that we can be patient. We're gonna trust that the Sonics are gonna come back. We can trust that the Mariners are gonna be good.
Yeah.
That's
I think
different, and I
it's
think it's just I think it's honestly it's a personal trait too. Like people
Well,
from the East Coast are so much different than the West Coast.
I think it's also just because Boston and New York have such a rich history of winning.
Yeah,
So you
exactly.
expect that. For the
It's that
Mariners,
culture.
they haven't, you know? So it's like, okay, no losing season. I mean, it's fine, you know? So it goes both ways, I think. But for the Knicks, I always think it's like they always have this hope. And I sometimes think hope is even worse than is like sometimes the worst because like, oh, we have hope to sign this free agent, you know? We're gonna
Yeah,
get
with
Kevin
KD
Durant.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
And then they don't, and then they have to, settle on Morris or, so it's like the fans want this free agent to come and they get really close. 'Cause remember, they got close with LeBron James. They've gotten close with a lot of these guys,
yeah.
and then they don't, and then it goes
Yeah, it's
boom.
that false hope kind of thing. I guess that's
Yeah.
what the Knicks are having. Yeah, they thought they were going to get LeBron. They still think they're probably going to get LeBron in a couple of years. They might even think KD. It's just all same thing with the New York Mets.
Mhm.
You
That's
know, the
true.
Mets thought they would sign Betts, and they all got sad because Betts signed with the Dodgers. Same thing
It's
there.
definitely interesting. Yeah, it's interesting because I remember when the Knicks got Carmelo, right? And then they got Amari. But I think when they had Carmelo, they were thinking they were going to go to the finals and win that.
Hmm.
But obviously that didn't happen. Um, and it's interesting because you get into that and then you think you have LeBron, but then you have like Amari, and it's
Hmm.
always second tier. And sometimes that's not the best. And sometimes you got to. I don't remember a rookie that they had that was really really good. Maybe Porzingis, but then you know how that went. He went to the Mavs.
Yeah.
So it's really controlling that. So yeah, college football. The Pac-12 recently announced that they will have a 10-game um, conference schedule, and then this has the ability to go down to 9 games if it gets worse, if COVID gets worse. They have built in 2 bye weeks, so players will get rested. They won't get injuries piled up. So still two bye weeks, 10-game schedule as well. Rutgers football is now in self quarantine their whole program, as they have 6 positive tests come out a day ago, and this is similar to Michigan State. So Michigan State is also in a full team quarantine. So just like you said about the MLB, how they're not in a bubble, this is even more apparent for college football since they're on campus. And yeah, so we'll have to keep updating you guys on that, but it's not looking great. Yeah, well, hopefully there'll be college football, but time will tell.
Do you think there'll be college football? Gut reaction.
No, I don't think there will be because, yeah, I don't think there will be gut reaction. I just think there's too many teams, too many state regulations. Colleges need to, get the sign off, and it's just too hard. I mean, it's not like I don't know. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah,
Do
I
you think
don't.
there will be NFL? I mean, we can answer that one. Do you think there will be NFL football?
I think there will be NFL
Okay.
just because it's the NFL is running everything and it's a little bit more clear cut between the connections. I think college is so difficult because there's so many. And then, NCAA, as much as, as important as college football is, there's
Mm,
also plenty of other fall sports they're trying to manage.
yeah.
Women's soccer, men's soccer. What are some other big fall sports?
I would argue this
Cross
though.
country.
Isn't it easier to kind of control college students' ability to like, okay, you guys have to have like a curfew, you know? We're
Mm,
gonna put instead because they're not gonna I mean, we saw this in the NBA with Lou Williams. He went to a gentleman's club
right.
right after he went. So I feel
Yeah.
like maybe there's more control with college players. And I know that kind of sounds bad in a way,
No,
but
I
what I'm
get
saying is
that.
that
Yeah.
they might have the ability to control the spread more than you're controlling grown men. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'd argue that, if college sports are happening, that means school is happening.
Yeah.
Right. That's my only worry because you're going to be surrounded by even more people.
What if
Um,
what if they went online? Because I know they might transition to online schooling.
if they did online, then I think it'd be better. But
Yeah.
because the whole thing with like even the NFL, like I think they announced that Roger Goodell is going to like fine players if they go to high high risk areas, like more
Oh
than
yeah.
15 people and high risk activities.
Mhm.
So again, there is some measure. Again, it's not the NBA bubble. I
Yeah.
think I'm worried about, college because they're gonna have to travel and you have a huge roster. And again, if there's no school or if it's everything's online, yeah, that's fine. But I guarantee not everyone's gonna stay at home and do online. They're gonna come
Mhm.
back to campus
Mhm.
because that's just how big colleges work. And we still
Yeah.
hear about it in the Seattle Times now about,
Yeah.
parties happening and UW students getting tested positive. So I think it's unavoidable for college. Um, but yeah, I think the NFL just has more capital to put in health procedures. I mean, who's going to be checking on these NCAA teams to have all these NCAA restrictions?
Yeah, I think
Some
it's
teams could
I think it
kind
would
of,
be on the program.
yeah,
On it.
I think some teams could kind of just not do it to full if they didn't really care. I know UCLA students, right? Football team, they
Mhm.
were like, we want a third party. We don't trust the NCAA too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, because obviously when we think of college football, we only think of the big teams like Alabama, Clemson, UW,
Mm.
Oregon, whatever. But there's so
Mm.
many small D1s, D2s that are still, well, actually, I think UPS D3 sports, they postponed, right?
I think, yeah. Um,
So
so I think you might see maybe some conferences not play and choose not to play.
I think
I
so.
know the Ivy League has chosen
Yeah,
not to
they
play.
already canceled. Yeah.
So you might only see the big schools playing um, this season. Maybe because they have more or maybe they have more capital, or maybe I don't know.
And the people want to watch them play,
Yeah. So
obviously.
maybe they
So,
have more an incentive to play in that sense.
yeah.
You know. So
But
we could see this the amount of teams drastically uh, change and dwindle
yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we'll have to see. We'll give another update when it happens. But what do you have for this upcoming weekend?
Yeah, so forecast for the week to start with the weekend. PGA, again, another tournament as we'd expect. So the World Golf Championships, also called the FedEx St. Jude Invitational, is going to be in Memphis at the TPC Southwind. Um, Last year, Brooks Koepka
Mm-hmm.
won. And again, like throughout these past couple weekends, we're seeing pretty familiar names, like the same names coming back and back. Tony Finau finished, I think, in the top 10 again last weekend. I mean, he was finished second or third the weekend before that. So I think he's going to be in the hunt. He's been playing really well. He could be a
Yeah.
potential favorite to win this. Um, as far as kind of the early winners, like let's say Dustin Johnson or Webb Simpson, they struggled. Remember, I think it was the weekend before.
Yep.
They didn't even make the cut. And I don't remember seeing their names in the top 10 for the 3M Open last weekend. So we will see if they can bounce back and get back to their kind of first couple week um, stardom or type of play. But it'll be, yeah, this one's a toss up for me. I have no favorites right now. Tony Finau could be a potential top 10 finisher again for me. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. Kind of what you said, how players are some of the best are not performing, and that kind of shows the stamina or the endurance you have to play week in and week out these
Mhm.
tournaments and these courses because they're all different.
Yeah. I
Um,
played
I,
18. I played 18 yesterday and I walked the whole thing and I'm already exhausted.
yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like, do you think there's more people playing golf now because it's the only sport on, and really the only sport you can do COVID free in the sense, you're only
Yeah,
playing with
social
2 or
distance.
3
Yeah.
people. So do you think there's a resurgence of golf, especially with the younger people? Because
Yeah,
I think there might be.
yeah. So Taylor Scarvey and I have been social distancing and playing golf. But we've been going to Jefferson mostly, and it's been really busy. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, golf's good because they have really good measures there. Making sure you wear masks when you're close by and
Mhm.
walking around. But on the golf course, you're social distance for the most part. So you don't need masks or anything. And yeah, it's been
That's
really
nice.
busy. It's been good weather too. So I wouldn't be
Exactly.
surprised if we see more people playing golf. I don't think watching golf is ever going to get as popular
Yeah.
ever, but I think people are definitely playing more.
I think you're right because I went down to Inner Bay's golf driving range, and it was packed.
Hmm.
So you're right. Nice weather, the ability to perform it social distance free in a sense.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's good for the sport all around.
I think so too.
Um, and then basketball is back. The NBA is finally back. The bubble is
The big
back.
news.
We are finally here, guys. Thursday tips off Pelicans versus Jazz at 3:30. Zion is supposed to be available. He had a
Mm-hmm.
family emergency and had to leave the bubble
Mm-hmm.
last week, so I think he's back and
Pelicans for the ship.
is getting cleared to play. So that will be a great game. I know Ryota has the Pelicans winning that.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, the Lakers versus the Clippers play at 6 o'clock on Thursday. LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, Paul George. That should get you hyped up because it hypes me up. Um, Maybe also a preview of what the Western Conference Finals could be. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. We'll see. But Ryota, what do you have for Friday?
Well, I want to talk quickly about the Clippers and Lakers because why
Okay.
not?
Yeah, I'm
Right. So
down.
previously, I said, the Clippers all in. I think the Clippers are better than Lakers. They have more depth. But with
Oh, how
Lou
that has probably
Williams,
changed.
happening,
Yeah.
that's a major blow to the team. Like he's quarantined for 10 days. So I mean, it's not like the Clippers are gonna be knocked out of the playoffs. They're already clinched, I'm pretty sure, based on whatever, statistics, projections, whatever. But
They are clinched.
I mean, yeah, I mean, this would be a great practice to see the NBA final. I mean, the Western Conference final. But I mean, and I also read, Lou Williams has to quarantine, which means he can't really do workouts,
Yeah, he
activities.
has
So
to
he might lose his touch a little bit within those 10 days.
he might lose his stamina, I would think, or maybe
Yeah.
just the ability. You know what's also interesting is that Montrezl Harrell and Patrick Beverley for the Clippers are reportedly about to join the bubble again, but they are missing out on these scrimmages.
Right. Because Beverly just got back, so he's not completely ready either. So it's interesting to see this game might not. I mean, this is the Western Conference final we want, but I don't think it's going to be a good representation because, yeah, the Clippers are lacking.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers beat them by 30.
Oh, well. I don't think they'll beat him by 30.
But I
I hope
mean, is
not.
Pat Bev going to play? Is Harrell going to play? Lou Williams is not there.
Well, I think
Kyle
Kawhi
Kuzma was
Leonard.
making threes left and right the other day in scrimmage. I don't know. The Lakers look dangerous to me. I'm going to say they win by 30 because the
That's a
Clippers
big take. Okay,
just don't have
I'll
any
put you down to
players.
30, and we can track that game Thursday. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm more interested. I kind of like the game before that, the
Yeah.
Pelicans versus Jazz.
Because the Pelicans are going to go 8-0, and they're going to take that eighth place spot. So,
They do need
or the ninth place spot,
especially
and then
because
beat the eighth
the
place.
Lakers versus the Clippers, they're already locked up. So I think it's going to be more fun to watch these games where their teams are fighting for it, and we might see some more like
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how the
fire.
West does. You got the Suns in there. What
Yeah,
other teams are there? The Pelicans, the Spurs, even. Isn't there one more
I like the
team?
Mavs. I want to see the Mavs if they can.
The Mavs, yeah. Well, the
Yeah,
Mavs are in, but yeah,
if
I
they can
think
hold on.
it'll be interesting to see how Doncic does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's going to be really fun. We're finally back.
I know.
It's a
Can't wait
long
for
time
Thursday.
coming.
Friday. So just again, we're not going to highlight every single game because there's so many games, but we just want to
Mm,
highlight some of the main ones. The main card, we could say, Celtics versus Bucks at 3:30. Eastern Conference battle there,
yeah,
and then Rockets versus Mavs, a Texas
interface.
rivalry
Yeah.
at 6 o'clock on Friday.
So is Russell Westbrook or yeah, Russell Westbrook? Didn't he test positive?
He
Is
tested
he
positive,
back?
but he came back to the bubble about a week ago.
Okay.
So he's been training. I'm sure he's almost completely fit to play.
Yeah, I mean, he was the first big guy to be tested, first big player to be tested
Yeah.
positive. So that's a big storyline in itself, and we'll just see. We'll have to see.
Hmm.
Saturday, the weekend slate, you have the Heat versus the Nuggets,
It's a good game.
76ers versus the Pacers, and Lakers versus the Raptors. So,
Well, there's some good games right there. A whole solid day of basketball
yeah,
right there.
76ers versus Pacers. Dante Sabonis just
Yeah.
has I think he had. What did he have? He had a huge foot injury. I think it
Were you
was.
going to say Liz Frank?
I was gonna say Liz Frank, but I think that's wrong.
I'm not sure. That is a type of injury, though. I
I think
almost
it
had
might be
that.
plantar. I don't know what it
Oh,
is,
I
but
think I think I
okay.
said plant fast. Yeah, the
So
heel
hopefully he
injury.
can recover quickly, but still a massive loss for the
Yeah.
Pacers. This is also without Oladipo, so the
Yeah.
chances are
Yeah, because the
diminishing.
Pacers are one of those interesting teams we both like and respect. But yeah, not having Sabonis is huge. Uh, Puts a major toll on Turner to do more work, and we know how
Mhm.
injury prone he is.
He,
I think
I do think he does. When he gets a chance, he performs well. But like you said, Sabonis has been a
he was
far
an all
superior
star.
player. Yeah, far superior
But
player this year.
yeah,
So
but they do have Malcolm Brogdon back, who was in
okay, that's
question for
good.
after testing positive, but he's already back and I saw him in the scrimmage, so that's good news for them. But yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, no Jeremy Lamb, no Oladipo, no Sabonis. They have
it
one more
is
injured
crazy
player.
how much that team is falling apart. But hopefully they can. I mean, we'll root for them. Yeah. What about the last weekend's game?
Yeah, forecast for the weekend on Sunday: Blazers versus Celtics. Blazers are I forgot that's another team that's competing to make it in, but they're always fun to
Exactly.
watch, even though they're the 10th place team, whatever. And Celtics are the second or third, right? Second place team. But that's at 12:30, and then Bucks versus Rockets at 5:30.
Yeah. Is this
Huge mismatch in terms of height. So we'll see.
huge?
We'll see how that
Huge.
goes
It's also interesting. There was also when do the Nuggets play
on Saturday
on
against the
Saturday?
Heat.
Okay, against the Heat. That I yes remember we talked about their lineup when they
Yeah,
had the scrimmage
that
about the
that
7 feet.
scrimmage, not the last scrimmage, but the scrimmage before that, right? It was
Right.
Jokic was playing the one, Jeremy Grant, who's like a 3 or a 4, was playing the 2,
The 2, yeah.
Bol Bol was playing the 3, Millsap at his usual 4, and then Plumlee at his usual 5.
Yeah, that is
And that
I
was against the Wizards.
was
No,
that
no, no,
against the
no, no.
Wizards? Or was that I think well, Bobo had a huge block on Reddick, which was the Pelicans,
That
and
was
then
yeah. So that was a more recent one, but I
okay.
think it was against the Wizards that first scrimmage. Yeah, that's
We'll
I
see
don't.
if we see that come out, and especially against the Blazers or against the Rockets, sorry, if they play them.
Do you think they'll? Do you think that lineup was just kind of for the scrimmage, or do you think that's something they might do?
Oh, it was definitely for the scrimmage.
Okay. Okay.
I don't think yeah. It's because all you need really is to I mean, yeah. The defensive
Question for you,
presence though. Yeah,
because
go.
question for you. So Bol is going to be one of those huge impact players that came back that we didn't see,
Mhm.
or we didn't really expect to see. Are there any other players
Exactly.
you can think of before we
Hmm.
jump into the Nuggets? I want to just talk more about the Nuggets in general, but I can't think of any.
I see, I think it's interesting because we don't really get, it's odd to get a player coming back. Maybe Yusuf Nurkic for the Blazers.
Yes, yes, that's a good one. He was
Um,
playing in the scrimmage the other day, I think.
yeah, he could
So
be an
that
impact.
makes, I mean, the Blazers are surely missing him. Well, they have Hassan Whiteside, who's done an okay job, but it's not Nurkic. Nurkic has a team chemistry, I think.
Yeah, Nurkic was really good last season,
But
and
imagine
then
having Whiteside off the bench or Nurkic off the bench.
I put Whiteside on the bench. I put Nurkic in just because I think he's better all around.
Yeah.
Another player, possibly, and I don't know if this is happening. I haven't really read any reports, but if Oladipo comes back,
Yeah, well,
I
I think he's
don't know
decided.
if
Yeah,
has
we
he
haven't
decided
really
not to
seen
come
any
back.
news, but I think he opted out just to
Okay,
recover more,
okay,
just to be
because
sure.
I knew he was debating coming back
Yeah.
and playing. But yeah, I
Let's
think
talk. Let's talk about the Nuggets
yeah, Nuggets. Okay,
because we have Bol coming back. So how does
Mhm.
that affect the lineup? People are also saying MPJ might see some more time. But we haven't really
Yeah.
heard from the Nuggets, honestly, about what their roster or the lineup's gonna look like.
Well, both players give you different different matchups. Bobo's definitely a defensive presence, given his height and just his ability to block. Michael Porter Jr. will give you outside shooting, a little bit off ball, but not as much defense wise. So you might see, I think, Jokic and Bol team up together, given how Jokic can play out on the outside
Mhm.
perimeter and his passing ability. So you could see those two together. Um, I haven't really heard much about Michael Porter Jr. in the scrimmages. Have you?
No, I haven't. Oh,
Okay.
just I guess in NBA general, it kind of just we just haven't heard a whole lot about like the team and how they're gonna start, and I think they're
Yeah.
kind of keeping quiet about it, or maybe it's harder just for the reporters to figure out because it's a bubble. But I mean, I would imagine so. Jamal Murray's playing, right? He's definitely
Mhm.
playing the. So he's playing the one. The two is going to be interesting because Gary Harris has not played that well recently.
Yeah, that's
Kinda
true.
dropped from
He
his,
has
like,
dropped off.
2018 season, where he's really good. Um, they don't have Torrey Craig anymore, do they?
Very great for small forward. I think they're. I
Uh,
think
or the
so.
2.
The two. Oh, yeah, yeah. I think they do.
Okay, so
I'm
maybe Craig
pretty
plays the
sure
2?
he'd be playing the two. Um,
Let's check the roster.
okay. I have.
Or do you have it pulled up?
I think I have pulled up. Hold up. Okay.
Because MPJ play the 2?
No, he would be small forward.
Okay.
I hope. I mean, maybe he's a big guy for a 2. So right now the depth chart is Monty Morris at the 2 spot.
Oh,
Torrey
it says
Craig
they're all day
second.
to day. That's why. That's why they had that weird lineup. It says Jamal Murray's day to day right now. I don't know how I'm gonna click on him.
They have everybody day to day though.
Yeah,
That's
why?
weird.
Did he opt out?
Who?
Murray? Why else would he be? Oh, hamstring tightness.
Ooh, yeah. This team looks injured.
Yeah, I know. Even Will Barton's injured. So maybe they're gonna have to go with that big lineup that we saw. Like seriously.
Maybe, yeah. That's they're 4 starters. But yeah.
I didn't realize that they
So
were that injured.
if
Okay, well
Jamal
that's
Murray isn't a point guard, then you might see Monty Morris at the 1. And if
yeah.
he's
He's
injured,
played okay with them.
maybe Torrey Craig. I don't know. This team's injured.
Well, okay. Well,
Um,
who's their coach? Carl? No, not. Is it, what's his name? Malone, right?
mhm.
Malone has a lot of thinking to do now.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay. Wow. Because realistically, their lineup would be Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, Will Barton, Paul Millsap, and Jokic. 4 of those 5 are day to day. So yeah,
Wow.
you'd probably have to start Bol, Mason Plumlee. Yeah, I don't know. It'll
Okay.
be really interesting to see.
All right.
And yeah,
Let's see. One more thing, right? I think forecast for the week.
yes, WNBA is on ESPN.
Perfect.
New York Liberty versus the Dallas Wings will be at 5 p.m. on Wednesday. Ionescu's second WNBA game, so everybody should go check that out. Will probably be fun to watch. Just because she is kind of, I don't want to say the face of the NBA, but definitely will be in the near future. So
Yeah.
good to see this the start of a career.
Yeah. If I'm not working Wednesday, I'm definitely going to try to watch that game because I
And it's on
missed the
ESPN,
first
so
game.
it's great.
Yeah, I know. Almost all the games are on ESPN, which is really nice. Um, yeah, I'm sure they'll probably mix it in with the NBA and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to watch her play because I couldn't because I was working the last game. And then lastly, Thursday, 3 p.m. Obviously, we're gonna highlight our Seattle Storm because I think we're gonna win it this year. And they're gonna play the Washington Spirit.
Yeah.
So,
Brianna Stewart looks good.
Yeah, she scored 18 last game.
Mm-hmm.
So
She was the number 1 pick for a reason.
yeah.
But yeah, that finishes up our weekly rundown. We will have special guests Shane Kaneshiro and Justin Sassano on the next 2 podcasts. So go check that out. We'll discuss the Jamal Adams trade and go through the MLB weekend kind of overview. So should be good to have those 2 on. And we'll see you guys next week for the weekly rundown. See ya.